Hey kids, it's Old Man shouting at clouds, and now with others too. Chatting about the CFL is what they're going to do. Some have no contacts and others have no clues. Everyone will tell us all their quirky football views. Hear what Old Man and others know. It's the CFL Outsiders show.
Hey, GT. What are we going to do this week?
Same thing we do every week, old man. Take over the CFL.
Hey, kids. Welcome back to another episode of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your 100% impartial, completely unbiased, and joining every other CFL fan in the country as confused right now co-host, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. Joining me as always is GT.
Hey, and good evening, everybody. Nothing to talk about. Move along.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here.
Going to be a short show, 5 minutes. And MJ.
Yeah. How's it going, everyone? As my dad would tell me, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I like it. Between the games going the way they did this weekend and the announcements, it feels like it's bizarro land. In fact, I felt like coming on here and saying, let's talk animal husbandry or doily crocheting or whatever, because as little as I know about them, I feel like right now I know far less about CFL football and Canadian football. It's a wild few days. But we're going to talk about all of that excitement in a little bit. Before we do, we're going to get to a few news items. Get them there before we get bogged down too much. So the first one, while it's not really a news item, but I tell you how I do on fantasy. I did terrible this week. I ignored what GT said last week and picked VA, and he got me, as captain with double points, got me 6.6 points. So I was pretty much hooped. I also could afford the Calgary defense, which is a good one because I took cheap running backs, and they got me -4. But hey, Horvath got me out of BC as a $2,500 running back. I think got me 21 points and all. I ended up 67.9. Got thoroughly thumped by FM or by Argos Fancast. They were like 106.8. But I haven't seen the standings yet, but I think I'm still just barely holding on to the last playoff spot. How about you, GT? How was your week?
I did okay. I made a illogical decision and picked Drew Brown as my quarterback and also my captain, and some other things fell into place, and I ended up with like 118 points. So it was all around not too bad.
Guys, I made a fantasy team.
Oh, did you? Hey,
Yeah.
How did you do?
I got
Hey.
100.
Excellent.
I'm just going to crawl off. Did I mention 67.9?
And I forgot to make Rourke my captain, so I would have had more.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, you certainly would have.
Next
I'm
week, I'll
feeling-
know better.
I know nothing about football. Yeah, 100 points, 118 this week was great. It was a low-scoring week. Anybody that didn't have Rourke was really low-scoring, and I think the top points in the league were like about 120. So, wow, you both did good. Okay, I'll remember from now on, MJ. I've got to ask you too.
Well, no promises.
Yeah, well, you can always say I didn't bother, but if you're doing it, we should give it. I am impressed and feeling completely inadequate right now. So let's move on. I'll talk more about that on Friday when I drop Old Man Plays CFL Fantasy. But for now, let's move on. MJ's got something to tell us about some Canadian women making news.
Yeah, there's some Canadian women kicking ass and taking names right now. The Women's World Rugby Cup is happening, and we have a team playing. This team of women got some funding to go, but they had to crowdfund a lot of the funds they needed to go to this World Cup. But they made it, and they're there. And since they've been there, they have just been flying. They are outscoring opponents a lot. There's been lots of talk about their ruck speed and their clean breaks, and no one can keep up with them. In fact, in the semifinals, they were playing New Zealand, who is the defending World Cup champions. New Zealand gave them the haka at the beginning, and that was quite impressive to watch if you get a chance to watch it. But the women's team won 4-19 against the defending champions. And so they're playing on Saturday. against England in the finals. So
Hey,
if you have a chance to check it out, do it. But, like, good job, women. We're all rooting for you.
yes, good luck to them. Do you know what? Do either of you know what time it is or where we can watch it?
You can watch it on TSN. TSN has actually been covering it. It has pretty good coverage if you want to go back and look at any of the stories. And there are a lot of quite good stories there. So they've done some really nice background pieces on most of it. And so it is available on TSN. I'm not sure the exact time, but I would assume it's like 10 in the morning or something,
Yeah.
as
I
if
think
I
it's like
remember correctly.
9 or 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not sure the time zone, but it is a Saturday morning.
And folks are smart enough, they can figure out if we get them close to where to look, they can zoom in from there. But yeah, that is fantastic. In the finals is amazing. I have a granddaughter in high school who took up rugby this year. So who knows if she sticks with it, maybe there's somewhere for her to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the New Zealand team, apparently, if I remember correctly, had only lost 3 times in their entire existence of
Yeah.
Wow.
30 plus years or something. So it was a pretty major coup to beat them as well. And now they're going up against England. So it's going to be traditional powerhouses. It's going to be a good match.
Unfortunately, these things fly under the radar, so I didn't even know about it until a couple of days ago. But what I've been seeing and hearing is, yes, they look like a powerhouse there. Like you said, MJ, they're a couple of teams that they're thumping pretty darn good. All right, so congratulations to them. Good luck on the match. The one more thing that I wanted to, I don't know how much we need to talk about this, but I just wanted to put it out there because it's a little bit of a disappointment to me. We had this stuff earlier in the season with Zach getting injured in Winnipeg and them listing it as neck injuries and everything but a head injury. And then on the games we'll talk about a bit later, but in the Calgary game, VA on a run went down and ended up taking a knee to the back of the helmet pretty good, and he was very woozy. He was doing the drunk stumble trying to get back to his feet, so it looked pretty much like a concussion. And I noticed the injury reports today have him listed as back injury. I'm a little disappointed that it seems like at least some teams, when it comes to quarterbacks, don't want to tell us what's really going on. I don't know if it's because they're afraid of people getting the idea their quarterback has concussions or what, but it just seems to disappoint me. Am I making a mountain out of a molehill here, or is there anything to what I'm saying?
Well, I agree with you on, the hidden injuries and how that can happen. And we've talked about that, as you said, a couple times this year. I will, in defense of the Stampeders, say that Dickinson, right after the game, in his post game, immediately said it was back, or it was not a head injury, and that VA could have stayed in the game, but the spotters had taken him out, not the team, and that they all felt then, once the spotters had taken him out, they weren't going to put him back in. But he said immediately it was a back injury. And even then today, I saw an interview with VA, and again, he said it was back, it wasn't head. I'm going to have to think that they're being accurate, at least on that one. So he might have taken a shot to the head, but I think what took him out of the game was the back.
I'm willing to give the Dickinson and the Riders a free pass because they don't have a precedent for this. But Winnipeg likes to be very shady with their injury updates and reports. And so when they say it's neck injury, I'm a little suspicious of them.
Normally, I wouldn't ask about it, but to me, the first time VA got the head injury, they were very reluctant to call it that. And this one, I'm not a doctor, but I've been around football an awful lot. And just the way that he came out of that hit, that looked to me like a concussion type symptoms. He couldn't find his feet. So I could be wrong. I shouldn't guess these things, but that's what bothers me.
He definitely staggered around a bit. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not surprised that the spotters took him out of the game. I think that was probably the right decision at that time. Whether he could have gone and should have gone back in is another choice they had to make, and they made. I mean, we're probably going to talk about it later, but wasn't like Antwi, where he was barely on his feet, and that was really, really nasty looking. That was not good television.
Yeah. I just wish we could get to a point where I feel like I could trust the injury reports.
Yeah,
That's
I hear
just
you.
me. No. Anyway, enough of that. I was also going to ask GT here to tell us a little bit about, I think this is a little bit old, but it bears talking about what the flag teams were doing last week.
Yeah, we missed this last week, and I almost was going to call it a mea culpa, but it wasn't just me, it was all of us, so I didn't know what to call it.
We're sorry, so sorry.
But yes, we did. We failed to talk about this last week, so I just wanted to briefly bring it up. It's a bit old, but everybody should know by now that both the men's and the women's, particularly the women's, again, medaled in that tournament in Mexico, and they ended up. They had to medal. They had to get in the top 3 to be able to go on to the World Championships in Germany in the springtime. That from there, I believe the top 5 will then make it to the Olympics in 2028. So we have now both the men were bronze, the women were silver, and now both teams are going to the World Championships. It looks promising at this point. And like the rugby that MJ mentioned earlier, they're doing it with speed and with precision, things that the other teams are not at this point accustomed to seeing in both of these sports. So that's interesting that seems to be the direction the Canadian football rugby operations are going, speed and precision.
Yeah, the women were blowing teams out in both tournaments. So
Can't teach speed. If you've got it, you're doing well. I could be wrong, but you said the top 5. I think it's the top 6 that goes on to the Olympics. I think it's a full pool of 6 there. What I had heard was that originally was that this the Americas qualifying, when the top 5 out of that went to the Worlds. Did either of you catch all the Team Canada flag swag that La Police was modeling during the game on the weekend?
Absolutely. That was kind of a little bit of the reminder to me to make sure that we talked about this. And some of that was pretty nice stuff. So I might go on this Football Canada website and see how much that would set me back. So,
Yeah.
or my kids as a Christmas present.
I'm thinking I may do the same. I mean, I have no need in my life for receiver gloves, but I may have to buy a pair of those just because they look so
never know.
damn good.
And also, just quickly, like Flag Football Canada is doing an incredible job on their Instagram and TikTok, and so is Paula Police and some of the players. They're all fantastic social media from that whole organization.
Yeah.
So if you're
Right.
on, find them. It's been great.
Apparently, it wasn't quite as easy as it could have been, because from what I heard Paul saying, the weather wasn't great, which of course takes away from speed and talent. And he said they didn't even have film on some of the teams they were having to play. So congrats to them. Well done. Let's see, what else? I just wanted to let people know we're at the point where teams are hoping to get people back from injury, get some reinforcements in there. Hopefully you don't lose too many more. There were a couple injuries this weekend that probably weren't great. So I thought I'd say we don't know if any of these are starting this weekend, but they're all practicing full again with their teams. And so the biggest number of them that I've got were with Saskatchewan, where the 2 Canadian receivers, Emilus and Schaefer Baker, are both practicing in full. And surprise, surprise, Philip Gagnon, who I share the torn bicep with, is back practicing in full. That could be fortunate news, because apparently Zach Fry did not participate with a knee. So we'll see if Gagnon's in there on the line. The other 2 teams that were worth noticing was with the Alouettes. Davis is back officially practicing in full. So he will probably be there for the Calgary game, I would expect. And in Winnipeg,
Said that if he felt good after practice, he was going to start him.
yeah. And in Winnipeg, both Zach and Jareth Stearns are back practicing in full. So that could help their offense somewhat too.
Yeah, and I saw today that Nick Arbuckle was actually taking first team reps in Toronto.
Good.
So that will affect the Argos in a positive manner. And I know that in Calgary last week that Markel Lee was back also from that bicep injury early in the year, and that might make a big difference again to their linebacking core, which has been suffering in the last few weeks. So if they can get him back, I think that helps them a lot in their linebacking core at least.
Yeah, thank you. I missed that one completely when I was looking through for it. But these are good news for these teams. And anyway, that's all that I've got. I don't think unless anybody else has any that I've missed.
Nope.
Now, You mentioned, GT, that you were going to talk about, and I have to admit, sometimes I just flip right through the halftime shows because it depends how the game's going and how much time I have, but I don't always necessarily feel like I need to hear what they're thinking based on what I've already seen. So apparently I missed the fact that at some point Joel Deblanko was on the panel the same day he played this week. Did I get that
Yeah.
right, what you sent me?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I was a little surprised at this. We know obviously this year that the TSN has been bringing on players to do the panel with them and getting some input from current players. And I think that's pretty cool. I like the idea, but I was just very surprised that they would have a player on the panel and then 3 hours later he's actually suited up and playing in the game. That's a completely different thing than what they've done previously. It's usually been guys that are on the bye that they've brought on. But this was, I guess the panel was in Hamilton. He was in Hamilton, so there's some logic there, but I just was very surprised. And like you, old man, I have spent a lot of time this year watching games on replay and zipping through stuff and not really noticing. But a Saturday night, I actually sat down, my wife and I sat down and watched this game together for the first time in a long time. And of course, in that case, I have to patiently sit through the commercials and everything else that's going on and not cut off the volume and not talk to the TV so much. So I actually noticed this. I just thought it was interesting that that they would do it and that he would be allowed to do it on a game. Shouldn't he be out, doing whatever mental prep or whatever it is 3 hours before the game than being on TSN? So I just thought it was a little interesting that they went that route.
Was there no injured player in the GTA area that was
Yeah.
available to do that panel? Like Arbuckle, what do you like? He could have put Arbuckle on that panel.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I'll say this, based on the way Deblanko played, and especially that one delayed blitz where he just lit up Bo, I'm
Yeah.
thinking maybe every team's going to be calling the panel and going, can we send a guy over pregame? All right. Yeah, that is, they are being unique with some of their stuff. Last thing before we get to the news, I just wanted to talk a little bit. I don't know if either of you have seen, I've been picking these up off of CFL.ca. They started putting out their computer projections each week based on what's happened so far and which teams are going to make the playoffs. And I know people that are, well, I shouldn't say I know people, acquaintances or folks that I interact with on the Blue Sky and the Reddit that take this stuff really seriously. And I struggle because to me, it's all numbers. It doesn't take into what happens with the humans. And there's stuff like someone was telling me a couple of weeks ago, Ottawa had a better chance than I think anyone but Hamilton to win the East when they were behind everybody. This last week, Calgary's had 2 bad losses, and all of a sudden they have lower odds to make the playoffs, have a playoff home game, and win the West than either BC and Winnipeg do, which I don't get based on a couple of games. And Winnipeg has one big game. Rourke has a fantastic game. And all of a sudden, they're the top odds to win the Grey Cup. So does any of this make any sense to you? Or I'm not even sure why they bother doing it, but I guess it's content.
Yeah, you hit it right on. It's content. It drives conversation sometimes, good or bad. It's like power rankings. They don't matter. They're just made up stuff. It's AI generated. It's computer generated. So there's at least power rankings generally are some guy putting a pen to pencil or a pen to paper or whatever and trying to figure it out. Versus this stuff is just generated by a random roll of the dice or a machine algorithm. So it's completely irrelevant. And all it's good for is getting fans wound up one way or the other.
What I know is that they have BC and Hamilton in the Grey Cup, and so I'm totally fine with it.
Well, that'll make for an interesting weekend at your house anyway. Yeah. So, first game, Montreal 21 at Toronto 19. Were you there, GT?
Well, Friday night was not my best football night because I didn't get to see the entire game in both games because there was a big problem with the GO trains on Friday night in Toronto, and it took me more than almost like 2 hours when it should have taken me an hour. And so therefore I got into the game. It was already the end of the first quarter when I got to the game. And then in the second game, because I was recording that, but somehow the recording got thrown off, I missed the first quarter of that game too. So it wasn't my best thing, but I will say when I got to the game in Toronto, Montreal, I asked my pals, what did I miss? And they said nothing. They said, you missed 2 interceptions and then Toronto doing nothing with the ball and kicking 2 field goals. And that's kind of how it was. I will say it wasn't again until the end of the game that it got interesting. And there was a couple decisions there that I thought were really bizarro throughout the game by Dinwiddie and his staff. And at the end of the game, I don't know why he threw that pass on the last play. I just had no idea. When, to me, speaking of long field goals, they were in field goal range, and all they had to do was run the ball. Even if they had got 2 more yards, they would have had a legitimate shot at making a long field goal to win them the game. Instead, they threw a 4-yard pass on an out that was obvious to everybody in the stands, including the defensive back on the field, who just nimbly stepped in front of it. Game over. Montreal wins. So I didn't understand that decision. It was exciting, as it always is in the last 3 minutes.
Yeah. What did you think? I'll let you jump in, MJ, but I want to ask specifically because you were there. What did you and the fans think about the drive before that, going for it on 3rd down with a couple of minutes left, and then kicking the field goal with another minute off the clock?
We were all like, what are you doing? It's 3rd and 4. You're at their 29-yard line. You just converted a 3rd and 4 and exactly the same 10 yards earlier. You'd driven down the field. Everybody was like, what's going on? Why are you? That's a dumb decision. Yeah. But then as soon as they kicked it, I did the mental math and went, oh, they're playing the long game. They're playing. There's a minute and a half left. We get the ball back on a 2 and out. We get a shot at another field goal rather than this one shot at a potential touchdown. So they needed the points one way or the other. So, and then it worked, because if they hadn't have made that last second play, that would have been a brilliant decision to kick a field goal and then get a second field goal. It was that last second play or that last interception that changed that decision before that.
It did. But I still got a question. If you're going to say you're going to take the points and then come back and march and maybe have to kill off a bit more clock, why not do that 10 yards further out with 2.5 minutes left? So now if you hold them 2 and out, you're going to get the ball back with 1 minute and 20 left instead of whatever it was.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was an odd call. And because it didn't work, it was even more odd. But I kind of understood the math, as I say, and but I agree. Like I was looking across the aisle at the fan across the aisle, and both of us had our hands in the air, going, "What are they doing?"
Yeah.
So,
what about you, MJ? Any thoughts?
Well, I didn't actually write down a lot for any of these games because I didn't think we'd be discussing them a whole lot. But I have a couple things. I just laughed because I was like, in my hatred of Ryan and Co., I forgot how much I hated McLeod Bethel Thompson and his inability to string 2 good games together. Moss and Dinwiddie both just looked so exasperated.
Yeah.
They both look, and then Shaggy was the Argos top rusher with 18 yards, and I just couldn't. I just felt like neither team had anything going. And in fact, the Royals and the Jays were playing, and the Jays could have clinched that playoff game on that game, and the Royals scored 20 runs on them, and they had more runs than the Argos had points. And I was like, it was a bad day for Toronto sports.
Toronto's teams. I believe that. And they kept saying that. I can't remember who was the color on the, how could McLeod Bethel Thompson have 400 yards last week and look so bad this week? Well,
did they not watch any games last year? My goodness.
Yeah, because this week he was playing against actual experienced defensive backs.
Yeah, so that was basically
the team
it.
Hadn't pulled in a couple of 6-year-olds off the street and said, "Here, play corner for me." No, I had a couple of questions on it. I don't want to go on with this too long. The first one, and this wouldn't probably have affected you at the game at all, GT, but on television, who the hell is Overdrive, and why are they screwing up my football watching time?
Oh,
They had
so
whatever. I'd
boring.
assume it's some kind of sports show out of Toronto and probably a TSN property, so they wanted to promote it. But the last thing I need to do while I'm trying to watch football is listen to some idiot tell the story about how at 16 years old he was a volunteer at Commonwealth Stadium and put out a fire that he feels saved the stadium. Just go away. And they kept coming back to it. They had them in the booth. They had them on the sidelines. I don't get it. I didn't like the
Yeah.
in-game interviews ever. I didn't like them in the Hall of Fame game. I certainly don't like it for some bunch of radio jocks that mean nothing to anyone outside of the GTA.
Actually, that program is syndicated across the country, unfortunately.
Okay,
So,
well, I've never seen them.
yeah. So it is. So it's and they draw ratings. Those three guys draw ratings. I don't know why. I've never liked them. They're a bunch of puckhead, and I've never understood it. But puckheads rule. It's that time. They want to drive it back, and again. So thankfully, at the stadium, I didn't have to witness any of that.
You're so lucky.
And then the only other observation, well, my note said MBT's gone colorblind, throwing to the other guys again. Toronto can't get anything but field goals out of it. And that was pretty much covered the game completely, except there was one spot, and this is usually don't pay quite that much attention, and I probably wouldn't have noticed it. It happens occasionally, but just how egregious it was. There was one point, I think, in the third quarter there where I rewound the thing just to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing, and then asked the goddess, because she used to do sideline chain work, and she was pretty good at spotting them. The Argos on second and about 8 or 9 got tackled 2 yards short of the first down, and the ball was placed third in inches. The refs just gifted them 2 extra yards. The replay center never stepped in, never said anything about it. And I mean, they were a good referee crew. I think it was Andre that was doing that game, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah, Andre looked pissed off the entire game.
Yeah.
And I've never seen him look that way. From every replay we watched, every time he made a call on the big screen, he looked angry, like I don't know what it was, but he did not look happy at all with whether it was the crew he was working with, whether it was the calls, what it was. But I've never seen him look like that before. Yeah. It was interesting. And that one play, even from the stands, we're like, not everybody was on. Whoa, that was a bit. But I noticed, I was like, man, they're way short. And then all of a sudden, no, they're not. I'm like, wow, how did that happen?
Exactly. Anything else? No. Well, the next one is the Calgary game. And we normally would let you run with this, GT, but I've got a total of 5 points here on the game, so I'm going to put them out quickly and then let you comment, okay? This is my summary of the game. BC good, Calgary bad. VA, 2 interceptions. Bellew hurt, not good for BC. Does flow out make that big of a difference? Flush it and move on.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I basically missed a bunch of the first 10 minutes or so. I got the game right after Always interception and the second touchdown. So it was 14-0 when I turned it on. And you could see right away that, as I said, VA was in his head and he was having one of those games, and it was not pretty. And the offense is the offense, and that's driven by him. So I'm okay with that, so to speak. He was having a horrible night, and it showed. I thought Mills played pretty well and did everything he could, and I thought he ran the ball hard. And they called enough of his plays that he got that. But I think people have figured out the defense, and I'm more worried about the defense than I'm worried about the offense. So, because I think at the beginning of the year, everybody was all agog about this defense that Calgary was playing, and how it seemed to be so simple, and yet everything was so easy for them to manipulate. And I just think now the offensive coordinators have figured out the defense, and if we aren't able to make some adjustments on defense, we're going to be in for a long run. So I don't think it's Flo being out of the game. I think that's too easy because Flo was in the game for most of the game against Edmonton. And they were and Hutchins was out, so they had another guy out, but they but they still got run all over, and they still got, they still weren't able to adjust. And I just think that right now this defense needs to be more complicated, needs to start sending some more exotic blitzes, I think is the term. And I'm more worried about the defense than I am the offense.
Yeah, I have notes saying like VA looked really jittery, and it's just, yeah, he got hurt. I was putting my kid to bed and I came back and all of a sudden VA's not on the field and I have like a string of messages like just like all down, like everyone talking about VA. And then I did see a replay of it and I was like, ooh, bad. And then Walker got hurt and
Yeah,
he's out for the year. And that was bad.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, poor Calgary. I'm like, are they calling Edmonton right now to see if Ford's available? Um, Dave won a challenge, guys.
Yeah,
He did
hey!
it! Yay, Dave!
It was actually a good challenge.
Well, it was at the beginning of the game and it didn't really make a difference. But the important thing is he won it and he tried and he did it.
Yes. I'm not saying the timing or anything, but I'm saying it was a challenge he was going to win.
Yeah.
He actually picked
Yeah.
one that was
Well,
obvious.
you just gotta start the bar low and work your way up. Rourke and Hatcher were just having a field day out there, just clicking along, having a great day. And then TSN, the nonsense that they do. Which player was it? Which Calgary player? They showed him coming off the field, clearly concussed, and was weaving all over, and they had to be propped up. And then they showed him waiting outside the injury tent, weaving and almost collapsing. Do better, TSN. That was, no one needed to see him doing that. That was awful.
Yeah, that was Joshua Antwi.
Yeah,
and
awful.
It was as I said earlier, that was not good television.
No one needs to see. Like, just don't. No, they could have panned to anything else on that entire stadium except for him waiting to try and get in that injury tent, and him like that was no.
But yeah, and that's what they do. Like I said earlier, I talked about the VA when he got the concussion earlier in the season. And part of the reason I knew that was a concussion was they were waiting. And as soon as he came out of the tent, they had the camera in his face. And as he walks to the bench, and they back up and just are and you can see his eyes and everything, But yeah, I agree. We don't need to see that. That's it. Anything else? No. Well, I'll just finish by saying I kind of agree with you too, GT. They kept talking about how Slowick had designed a simple offense because they were young players and they were just playing fast and adapting to it, and it was helping them. And I think maybe it's a couple of things. One is, you're right, maybe defenses are figuring it out and finding out where the spots are with it. But the other thing that I do see as a huge difference in the last two games, VA didn't play great in Labor Day and they still won it. But the difference in the last two games is I'm not seeing anywhere near the pressure on the quarterbacks. And that's what I think, like any good defense, but that one defense was really dependent on it. They were getting in people's faces, hurrying the throws, getting interceptions off of it, all of that. And I don't see it now. So that's where I don't know. Is it that people have figured out how they're doing their twists and their schemes, or is it just the fact that without both Hutchings and Rumilati in there, the talent level drops off enough that they can block better with five and they don't have to worry about bringing in the back to help or anything like that? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's a combination of all of the above, because you can't lose a player of Omalati's standard without losing something. There's no doubt about that. But that's the big concern for me, is can they fix that in one, either by design or by player. Okay. But they need to fix it one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. If they can't get the extra talent in, then they have to start changing up what they're doing. I agree. Cool. Anything else on this? Okay, another game that I think a lot of these games are worth moving through pretty quickly. Winnipeg at home to Ottawa, 26-8. We'd all picked Ottawa. I think everybody picked Ottawa. Ottawa just decided they weren't going to win the game. They didn't want to. They moved the ball. I stole this from Oz of Rouge, White, and Blue, a podcast that him and Joe do out of the States there. And if you don't listen to it, you should. They've got a unique take on CFL from an American perspective. But he pointed out, he wished there was somebody that did a record check, because he said, has there ever been a game where a quarterback got over 350 more passing yards than the opposing quarterback and lost the game? That's what happened. Strebler was good on 3 of 8 for 54 yards. Drew Brown was somewhere up over 400 yards. So he had
406.
Yeah, so he had 352 yards more than Strebler, and they lost the game, and it was just because Ottawa couldn't get out of their own way. They'd march down the field, they'd just get close to field goal range, he'd throw an interception. They'd get into field goal range, they missed 2 field goals, gave up one for a touchdown, and the other one was a 50 or 71-yard return to to midfield. They had 199 yards and missed field goal returns on 2 of them. Ottawa just kept giving the ball away, just making mistakes with it. They scored a touchdown on their first drive and on their last play, and that was their game.
Yeah, it was the weirdest game I've ever seen, I think. It was the strangest game to watch because Ottawa was moving the ball, and on that first drive, it was like, oh my goodness, Drew Brown is awesome. Look at this. This is crazy how good they look. And then you just kept going, yeah, they're moving the ball. Mistake, mistake, mistake. And they just, let's get our feet. They just couldn't get out of their own way. Like it was wild. And in the meantime, the Bombers were just plowing forward with a run after run after run. And the Ottawa was doing their best to stop them, their defense. But the other two portions of the game were not helping.
Yeah, but it wasn't like Brady had 150 or 200 yards.
No.
He had about 100.
No.
So they got running out of him. But I just kept waiting for Ottawa to, just get your feet under you and it's going to be fine. And it was halfway through the second quarter, I'm saying that. And then we get to the end of the half. Okay, and then by the time we're about halfway through the third quarter, I'm going, I don't think they're going to do it. It baffled me. 3 completions. We have the forward pass is now legal in this league.
I think he had one at half.
Yeah. The other 2 came late in the fourth quarter. I don't know.
3 notes on this game. First and most important, I was at the ballet on Saturday afternoon, so I did not watch this game. And the physicality I saw at the ballet was a much higher quality than this football game. Second point, in 1960, the Bombers beat Edmonton 18-14 with 0 yards passing. So they've done it before.
And sorry, what year was that?
60.
Okay, so
someone asked a CFL statistician and they found it. Yeah. And then my last note is that Strebler is 2-1 as a starter.
Just amazing. Yes.
He should have put on the fur coat after this win, I guess.
I guess so. The last thing I've got on the game is a little bit of negativity. And it's just, to me, this may be driven by the fact that I share this brain with somebody who's a big Rider fan and he notices this. But it seems like anytime that the Riders are involved in a hit on a quarterback, it's the end of the world, and they're the dirtiest team, and the entire league's talking about it for the full week. In this game, there were twice that Winnipeg defenders hit Drew Brown with true headshots, the crown of their helmet hitting their first, driving in. They both got penalized, which they should do. I'm hoping they both get fined, which they should do. But as far as fan reaction or controversy over it, crickets. It's what happens in football. And I don't get that double standard.
Yeah, I think that might be driven by a little bit by the game and the weirdness of the game taking over, and everybody only talking about 53 yards and three completions, and then by the time then everything changed as of yesterday. So I don't think anybody's really talking about much about them.
Yeah,
but I hear your comment. I get your comment. I agree.
Yeah, and the other thing is Brown got up after both of them. If he'd been taken out after one, there might be more complaints about it. So we'll see. Okay, and then the last game. You've got the Arkells and the Tiger Cats on today, so I guess you better take this one here. Edmonton 27 at Hamilton 29. A decisive victory that was never in doubt.
Decisive victory indeed. My sister and I actually debriefed about this on Sunday. We were having a chat about it, and we were both very not impressed with the Ticats again, and that they lost this game. Like, they should have lost. They should have. And the Elks are just a little bit worse than them. But the Elks kind of give the The reason I had picked the Elks to win this game is that they gave the Ticats everything they could handle when they played last time.
And again this time.
Yeah. And I honestly, I think that was a touchdown. I think it was a touchdown. I think that Elks catch was a touchdown, and I think they probably should have won that game. But I am not the replay center, so carry on. I just don't know if you guys knew that it was windy that game. I'm not sure if you had been aware that it was windy.
Well, once I watched for a while.
Yeah, it was mentioned 1,000 times. And you know what? Despite that, the kick, they was 9 for 9 on field goals between two kickers. And in fact, Legio was who they interviewed after the game. And he said they tried to interview other players. They're like, no, go talk to Legio. Like, he's who you need to talk to, where you don't need to talk to us. So that was really sweet.
Yes, he should have been that. And I will say, even if you had the TV on mute, you got to know it was windy, because every time there was any kind of a break in play, we got 20 seconds of the flags at the top of the goalpost flying one way or another.
The goalposts were moving. This was Hall of Fame induction day, and unlike you, I love the interviews. I usually hate in-player interviews. I love Hall of Fame interviews because I like to hear about their experiences, and I like to hear about how they got the phone call that they were inducted, and their families there, and it's really, really nice. I thought this was what I was going to rage about this week, and I had a whole thing prepared. I thought this surely was the thing I was going to go to the wall on, and then yesterday happened. But they were interviewing Jermaine Copeland and Rod Peterson. Jermaine Copeland was saying about how Nick called him, and he and Nick were crying on the phone together about his induction, and he was just so overwhelmed. And Rod Peterson told Jermaine Copeland that he would have to hand in his man card for crying.
God, I missed that.
And I was furious. I looked to my son and I was like, that's not true.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not true. You listen to Jermaine. That's who you listen to. You don't listen to this clown. And honestly, I was so disappointed to hear that come out of somebody's mouth on a national broadcast. And it really just ruined my game experience and for a while, because I was stewing about it, and I couldn't believe someone would say that. And anyway, congratulations, Jermaine Copeland. I'm glad you cried on the phone because you were so overwhelmed with joy, and playing in the CFL meant so much to you that you were so emotional. And you know what? That's a great example for meant to be. I look forward to Rod's apology the next time he's on
I would
air.
think so. And I'm proud of you saying to your son, I've said before, I really don't go for the personal interviews that much, but I'm great with having them. But you've got a halftime and a pregame show to do all that in. Why do we have to have them talking and that cognitive dissonance while we're trying to watch a football game, and we're losing the insights of the commentators? That's just me. Anything else you had for the game?
I have something that ticked me off and got me going about something that I've had a problem with for a long time. And that was at the half, they were talking about statistics, and they were saying that Cody had a pretty good half. He was over 100 yards passing. I think it was 120 yards passing. And I was like, no, he's not. No, he's not having a good half at all. In fact, I thought he was pretty bad in the first half. And in fact, if you look at it, he has like 34 yards passing, and Rankin has 79 yards running. So don't give the quarterback the passing yardage on that play. I really have had a problem with passing yard statistics for a long time. And I wish they would. There's yards after catch. Why isn't there yards in the air? The statistic for a quarterback should be yards in the air, not yard period in the reception, because a play like that is the best example. That was a 4-yard pass in the air, and yet it was a 79-yard play that Fajardo got all the credits in the statistics for. And that's ridiculous. That is totally ridiculous that those statistics go to him and not either to the running back at all, other than yards after catch, which don't show up anywhere, because when they show the statistics on the board at the halftime, they don't put yards after catch. They just put reception, right? So that's nonsense. And it totally distorts how good or how accurate a quarterback's play is in a half, a quarter, and an entire game. And I wish that we, within this game, in this age of analytics, and this was almost going to be an all about me this week, but then then yesterday happened, so I decided to let it go that far.
Yeah.
But I will say it does make me crazy. And this was the best example of it, where, in an age of analytics where we can have all this stuff and all this stuff is supposed to matter and what you're betting on and so on, then let's bet on what's in the air and what's actual yardage that a quarterback throws, and keep track of that, rather than a running back taking a ball, especially the way the game's being played now, where that's happens more and more than it ever used to. Because there are all these short passes with the shell defenses every team's running. So now it's all these little outs, and they say, well, it's part of the running game now, where they throw the out to the back coming out of the backfield, and he's on a sideline, and all of a sudden it's a 2, but that becomes a 20-yard pass because it's in the air. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, or
It's
even
ridiculous.
worse, the ones where they bring them across on the jet sweep and they do the little chest pass where they just pop it
Yeah.
up to them, and that then counts as a pass. That's one thing that when you mentioned that, it made me realize something about that Winnipeg game is Dembski didn't get a pass, so his consecutive game streak of 80-some games with a catch is gone now. But
No, he got one of those.
No, he didn't. I just checked the stats.
Oh, okay.
He was one
Okay. I
attempt,
thought he
0 receptions. I thought so too, but no,
Oh.
because that pisses me off, because you see so many of these guys that now have these streaks in the 50, 60, 100 game
Yeah.
range. And I've seen at least 3 or 4 games where Dembski only has it going because towards the end of the game, they did one of those to make sure he got it. And I look back and I remember watching Don Narcisse get to his, 201, 202 games with a catch, and there was none of that. It was, there might be the odd wide receiver screen, but it was out there catching a ball in every game, and he'll never get caught on that number anyway. But there's so many of these records that don't make so much sense to me, like that one. And then the other one, as you said, short passes and that. Everybody in the league is over 70%. Oh, look at what great quarterbacks we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me a break.
Still not seeing more scoring out of it or anything. It's just the way the game's going. When you don't throw anything more than 5 yards downfield, you're probably going to be up in those 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I didn't think Fajardo, and honestly, since he's come back, I think he's looked okay. I think he's been running around, making things happen to some extent, but I don't think he's delivered what I would consider a clinic where he's sat back and just driven offense. I think they've had a few things handed to them, and I'm all right with it.
Yeah, but that's always been his game. He looks like he shouldn't be good enough to win, and yet he does. And it's not pretty, but ever since he caught fire in Saskatchewan, when he's been on, I at least sit there and look at him and go, you can't win a game playing like this, but he does. So I don't know how it happens. You're being very quiet, MJ. Sorry, have we pushed you out of the conversation?
Oh, no, yeah.
Is it getting too late? Are we losing you?
I was like, this is fine.
Okay. Well, I won't say anything more on this other than I mentioned the really nice delayed blitz by Deblanko that needs to be acknowledged. Hilaire for Edmonton looks like he could be somebody who's worth paying attention to. He hasn't blown up yet, but he's made some nice catches with the stuff. What else did I have here? Oh, there were 2 separate field goal attempts that Edmonton got called for no end on, which I don't know how that happens, and apparently Mark Killam doesn't either because he lost it.
It was hilarious.
But it happened twice.
Yeah.
But it happened twice, so they must have been doing something wrong.
Yeah. And how did you not?
Why would you?
Killam looked like he was not. He seemed pretty sure that he was not doing something wrong.
Yeah.
The way he was freaking out at the ref. So I was like, well, who's right here?
Yeah. Well, that's what it looked like to me. When you said
and he was. and I couldn't figure out who he was so mad at the game end. It's like after the game ended and they lost on that field goal, it was like, why is he just now it looked like he was going to like have a meltdown. I was like, so who's he so upset with? Is it his team? Is it the rep? Who is it?
Is he mad because
I
Scott
don't-
wouldn't fight him after the game in the parking
Yeah.
lot like Ryan was?
It was odd.
Yeah, I don't know it. Yeah, and I kind of got the impression what you were saying there, MJ, that they called him the first time and he said, and he was arguing it a lot. So I think he said to his team, well, they don't know the rules. Don't worry about it. And they did
Yeah.
exactly the same thing rather than adapting to what the ref has just told you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's given Jason Moss a run for his money, isn't he?
Oh,
And Brian.
He is. And he's more animated anger. He's not like the Dickinson, just constant, slightly below the boil that pops over now and then. He's more like a Dinwiddie or a Moss. When he gets angry, you know it. The things are flying around and his arms are going.
Like,
Anyway.
I get that you're mad, but you lost that game.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Williamson. Williamson was that clown from Toronto that came over to the Elks. Got that roughing the
Jordan
passer
Williams.
call.
Mhm.
Got that roughing the passer, marched him up 15 yards. They're basically in field goal range. You want to be mad at someone, talk to him. Why is
Yeah.
he? I wouldn't even have let him on the plane.
Yeah. Because that call or that penalty, which was a stupid, selfish penalty to take, that cost them the game because they were holding Hamilton to 5-10 yards a pass and they weren't going to have time to get into field goal range.
Yeah.
But that gave it away. As soon as he took that, I said, well, okay.
So that's
we're
the same
done.
guy that was beaking his mouth off at the Argos game week
Yes.
before. So at what point is he worth his roster spot?
Well, I don't know. Apparently he's a pretender, you know.
Yeah, well, maybe that's true.
Maybe Ryan has something going for it. All righty. Such fun. Amazing how much there is to talk about. A bunch of games that the best of which were watchable.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. Let's wrap this. We've been going 2.5 hours here now, so I'm going to have to split this into two. But we'll move on to our game predictions this week, and we've got Calgary at Montreal is the first one. Davis is back, practicing full. We don't know if he's starting yet. VA was limited in practice, and it's hard to say, but I have trouble seeing him being ready to come back this week. So they will have Logan Bonner, Love, who's on their practice roster, and Vaughn is what I'm predicting, not guaranteeing. So predictions, folks.
Your
I feel
team,
like we're in
GT.
this lull in figure skating where they say, now we're going to go to the judges' scores, and everybody's tabulating.
Yeah.
No, I was just waiting to see whether you wanted me to go first.
Oh yeah, it's your team. You got to go first.
Yeah. Well, all indications are this should be a Montreal victory, and therefore I'm picking Calgary.
Okay. It's
Fair.
worked for you a couple of weeks.
No, I honestly think I think that they will be better. I think Davis Alexander's back, but he's been out for many weeks. It's going to take him a little bit of time to get his feet wet, and I think VA is going to play. I think VA is going to play, and I think he's going to be better. I don't know how much better, but I think he's going to be closer to August than September.
Yeah, and see where I'm coming from is that's the big difference is I don't see him making it back in. This is me making assumptions off what they said, but I'm assuming it's a concussion. They're still in a spot where they can win the West and they can have a real good shot at a home playoff game. And so why put him in there too early and risk losing him the rest of the season? That's what I'm thinking. So I'm taking Montreal. How about you, MJ?
So I think Calgary are going to try and play VA if they can, especially because Walker is injured and they just have Percy. Whether VA is going to, you know what? Someone pointed out that he hasn't looked good since he's been sick. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So I don't know if that's something or if that's nothing. He just looks pretty rattled. Alexander is back. He's like the biggest hype man for that team.
Yeah.
If he's rusty, maybe. Calgary defense looks terrible. Montreal defense looks good. They're playing with end zones that are a little
Yeah.
like, cut off. So,
Yeah. And
how
every week
how does
we see
that
someone
affect
going out of bounds on those,
yeah, how does that affect
Well,
the Dave Dickinson's play calling home field advantage for the Alouettes? I just got a notice that McGill said they are not going to be paying for any renos to their
Oh
stadium
my.
and that it is a primarily their stadium despite rule changes to the CFL.
Well, that
So,
will be interesting.
anyway, all that aside, this is like, I'm going to pick Montreal, but I'm not confident.
Yeah, I do feel relatively confident because of the way the Montreal defense has been playing. However, I will say there's a few teams that have exposed them as able to run against them, and
And if anyone's going to do
Calgary
it, it's going to be
definitely can
Mills.
run the ball. Whether VA's playing or whoever's playing, you can get some good yardage out of Mills. So anyway, but 2 for Calgary, 1 for Montreal, uh,
2 for
sorry, two
Calgary. I
No,
thought.
I
2
picked
for
I picked
Montreal, 1 for
Montreal.
Calgary. Sorry,
Okay, I have
that
to
was
okay.
write these down because the Instagram
Yes,
account
I've got
needs
to go
them
back
too.
and there's a couple. I was going to give us our totals for the time, and I realized I hadn't updated my spreadsheet for a couple of weeks, so I got to go back and listen to the end of a couple of shows and get that done. But anyway, okay, so that was game 2. Oh no, that was game 1. Game 2,
Oh, goodness.
Toronto at BC. Now, someone said Arbuckle was full in practice today,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
good because it is a game it's another West Coast game at a 7:00 start. This is a true 7:00 start West Coast, so it'll be midnight start for Toronto. I said when I was putting notes down on this, last game was a shootout, but it looks like Toronto's coming in with a BB gun, so I'm not encouraged. If Arbuckle's there, it could be very good again. However, I think all things considered, I will pick BC for this game. I think that if Arbuckle's in there, it's probably going to be another one with scores in the 40s and maybe 50s. But I think that the home field and a couple of things like that may help for BC.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a shootout, but I see BC coming out on top. I think they're on a bit of a roll. There's no doubt about it. I think their defense is playing a little bit better, and yeah, and I think it's BC. I'm picking BC.
Yeah. Herschel's going to be really happy if Arbuckle's back. And yeah, hopefully this is a good shoot 'em out game because it's the late game and we're all going to be tired. But I think Nathan's flying high and I'll pick BC.
Yeah. And that's part of what with me too is Nathan is looking very good. And he came back last year and we all know he didn't look great. And then this year he looked a little shaky at the start. He is constantly week to week, he's getting better. I would say at this point, he's in the top echelon of probably the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks we're watching play now. But my judgment on it is maybe skewed a bit, but I look at it from kind of the point of view of the fantasy and the passing game. And what I see is if I'm in doubt on anything, I always go back to Bo because somehow Bo gets 300 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns, whether they win a game or lose a game, whether he starts absolutely slow or whatever, he has that consistency, and I'm going to get that out of him. Harris, if I go to him in Saskatchewan, I know he's going to get probably 275 to 300 yards and 1 or 2 touchdowns, so I'm planning according to that in how I'm doing this stuff. With Nathan, he still has had enough inconsistent games that I've passed on him and he's blowing up the league and taking everything. And then I've gone for him in games like that Ottawa game where in Ottawa, and maybe the wind was part of it, but he didn't have that consistency. So that's the only thing that makes me a little nervous about picking BC here is will it be as good as we've seen the last couple of weeks or will he fade back a bit? But anyway, so we said BC, and you said MJ, did you say BC?
Oh, do you see the lunchbox? I
Oh,
have
okay, yes. But just so you know, a lot of people watch this, but there's also the podcast audio people, so nodding doesn't work. No, the
Oh, yes. So
lunchbox
you
I
should
can get, but
see. I did say BC.
you did.
Or,
Yeah.
yes, I have my 2009 BC Lions lunchbox that I got for when I was a volunteer at BC Place.
Wow.
Yes,
Nice.
it's
Ancient
survived all
memorabilia.
these years.
Okay, so we're all on BC. Then we've got Hamilton going into Winnipeg. Zach is practicing in full. Jer Stearns is practicing in full. Don't know what that means. Anybody want to go first?
I don't care if Zach's not. No, I'm picking Hamilton.
Yeah, I'm going to take Hamilton. Yeah, I'm still not. I'm not. I can't decide about Winnipeg. Yeah. As we said too much times earlier this year, they're so up and down, and I'm not sure which way they're going to be this weekend. As you just said, Bo's somewhat consistent, so I'm taking Hamilton.
Yeah, exactly. And I am too. The note that I had on this is, yes, Zach may be back, but he's still this year's Zach, not 2019 Zach.
Yep.
So, all right. And then the last game to end us off on the Saturday, Saskatchewan off the bye comes into Edmonton. They're coming off the bye, so they could be a little rusty. They did get, as I said, Emelis and Schaefer Baker back. The secondary, there's still concerns about.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there still rookies?
Well, that's where we're
on the corners.
concerned about. Lacombo and Ford are the 1 and 2 safeties. They're both still did not participate coming out of the bye, so that means we're back to, I think it's one of the Onyekas that they put down back there for safety, so the third string. Marcus Sales isn't on the injured list, so I'm assuming he's probably okay. I didn't check the 6th game. God, I hope not. I'm sure he's back. But Campbell, who was supposed to be a game time decision a week ago, did not participate with a head injury. So they've got that going for them. On the D line, I think less of an impact, but Ricky Ray is out for a while, so I think they still have a strong D line. And on the Elk side, on the defense, Mechie is on the 6th game, Seresna's on the 6th game, Smith is on the 6th game, and now they've lost Morgan and Anderson both too. So there's some challenges there as well. These are the games that scare me, but I'm going to pick Saskatchewan anyway. All things being equal, they should be able to win this.
Yeah, I'm going Riders too for the same reasons. I think that they still have enough depth to overcome that, and I think their offense. I'm not impressed with Edmonton's offensive line, and I think Saskatchewan's defensive line, even with Ray out of it, can put enough pressure on them to be able to throw them off and make up for the fact that they don't have that. If one of those two corners is missing, it's it's not as desperate as two of them. So that'll be. I think they can overcome all of those things, and I think they're also coming off a game that they lost badly, and they want to show that that's not them, that they are the class of the West. So I'll take the Riders.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the depth charts. How about you, MJ?
Yeah.
Elks have a problem finishing games. Maybe honestly, I think the defense is kind of washed out here. So do I think Cody or Trevor are who's going to outgun each other? I'm worried about Riders' kicking situation. You two took Riders?
Yeah.
You know what? Just for nonsense.
Just to gain some ground. I don't know if you or GT's in the lead anymore. We'll have to see.
I'll just pick the Elks for just CFL chaos.
Sure. I'm here for the chaos. I love
Why
it.
not?
Always good.
Yeah. I'll also say, it just occurred to me when you were mentioning about the Riders and their depth, GT. That's one of the comments I've heard about sort of where Calgary's struggling right now, is I've heard a couple of people say they've put together a fantastic team, but the problem is they haven't been able to put the depth pieces in yet that they need. So as people are falling by the wayside a bit, they're having trouble keeping up. And then there may be something to that. I mean, let's not forget, this was the team that we all here, and I think 90% of the league universally had finishing at last place this year.
That's right.
And they still have a shot to finish best overall. Kudos to Angry Dave Dickinson and whatever help Brother Craig and the rest of the staff are doing there. They're making something work. All right, I think that about brings us to the end here. Oh, almost 3 hours. Sorry. I don't know about you. I'm fading fast. I'm going to have some fun editing tomorrow. So, all right. Tell us where folks can find you if they want to follow you at all, and any last thoughts you may have.
Good night and good luck, as the saying goes.
Okay.
At GT Barnum, at bluesky.social.net, whatever it is.
What I know for sure is that the Blue Jays have made the playoffs and the Ticats are in first place. You can find me on Blue Sky at Sports and Plans.
Yeah. Saying life is good. Yeah. I feel like I should be saying something now about to all the ships at sea or whatever. You can get me at oldman-sac at bluesky.social, whatever, or no, at, and you know how to do it. Forget that. I'm also on the CFL Reddit at u/oldman shouting clouds. We're on X, Blue Sky, and Instagram, all as at the CFL Outsiders. And other than that, there will be 2 shows out of this. I'll have to figure out how I'm going to make that happen. So you may see the same ending twice too. But reminding you, please help us out with the subscriptions, however you can trick somebody into doing it. It's all, the channel's growing. We love it. And the logarithm doesn't care who subscribes or where, it just does. So subscribe, please. Thank you for the fact that we are seeing more likes out there. And I really do appreciate that. That again promotes us within it. And thank you for leaving the comments. So I personally, I don't know how the other 2 folks here are doing, but I'm about to close my eyes and drift off after this. I feel like I've gone a few rounds with Mike Tyson. For MJ and GT, until next week, this is Old Man saying, get the hell off my lawn.